Black Myth Wukong. Finally, a game with some hype behind it, a AAA release, a game that we were all highly anticipating. Quite frankly, it's funny because we were talking about this yesterday. And the way I feel about it is it really feels like it has been such a slow year for major releases. I'm not saying there have been no video game releases. I'm saying it's been a very slow year for major releases. And a lot of the major releases that have come out have been underwhelming or disappointing. Okay? So with this one, finally having a giant release come out in the midst of the late summer. So actually this is the first push towards the very busy fall gaming season, right? To finally have it come out, it feels exciting. And I haven't felt excited for a game release in a while, okay? So I played it for 3 hours on my first stream yesterday, and then 2 hours on my late stream for a grand total of around 5 hours of gameplay on day one. What I would like to do is summarize my feelings about the game so that you guys know exactly how I feel about it after the 5 hours, okay? Shout out to Dead Reckoning, who did a super chat. Here's some dinero for the pot. Keep being the best version of yourself and crush it. Thank you so much, Dead Reckoning. Gotta crush it, man. That's what it's all about. All right. So, first of all, the first thing, obviously, that I'm going to mention is the graphics, correct? If you haven't seen my footage yet of Black Myth Wukong on my gaming PC, the game is stellar when it comes to visual presentation. It's got insane amounts of detail. I've got the ray tracing pumped to max. I've got 120 frames, 120 hertz. I got it on cinematic quality, everything, like every bell and whistle, all right? I have zero screen tearing because I'm playing it at 1080p. I have little to no input delay whatsoever, okay? The game absolutely just looks amazing, and this is probably the best you can play it, I would think. I'm really enjoying my time visually with the game. In fact, at the end of yesterday's late stream, we entered Chapter 2, which is you're leaving this forest area and you're heading to a desert. And you walk into the desert and you look up at these cliffs. The lighting is insane. It looks real. You see the little nooks and crannies of the cliffs and how the light is shadows on it and everything. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe this game looks this good. Now, does this game perform as well on PS5? I have no clue. But man, with these settings maxed and everything on my gaming PC, this thing looks absolutely sick. It is amazing. Over the top, crazy good looking. Okay? So, that's just the first thing you notice when you start playing it. Okay? The game throws you right into action from the get-go, which is exactly what a game like this should do. It shouldn't give you a slow narrative build-up for an hour. It shouldn't give you 14 tutorials that bore you. It should just throw you in. And it does. It throws you into a big epic boss fight. Then the story kind of resets, and then you turn into this character who really doesn't have a lot of abilities, but it's kind of neat because now you get to see how you were like a god at the beginning, and now you're starting from the bottom, and you're going to climb your way back up by establishing all these new powers and everything. Now, the major question I keep getting, Phil, is this game like Dark Souls? Is it like a FromSoft game? No. It's totally not. It's totally not like a FromSoft game. There are elements of it that feel like a FromSoft game. For example, you find a temple. When you touch the temple, it's your save point. You can fast travel between temples, and when you rest at a temple, it resets all the enemies in the area. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? You can also level up at the temple, and you can upgrade items and things. There's even a vendor at the temple, okay? The enemies hit for an insane amount of damage. The game is unforgiving in that way. Limited heals, not regenerating health, right? It's a hard game. For sure, it's a hard game. But this game is heavy, heavy action-based as opposed to Dark Souls or, Elden Ring, which are, I definitely argue, more RPG-esque in some ways. This game is just action, action, action. And it's similar to games such as, I'd argue, the old God of Wars, those Ninja Gaiden games from like the 2000s, Devil May Cry to some extent, and Bayonetta. Notably, the way that you avoid enemy attacks is not blocking or parrying, it's dodging. And when you dodge perfectly, you will get a clone of yourself where you previously dodged, and it creates a freezing effect on time. Does that sound familiar? Witch Time from Bayonetta. It's exactly the same mechanic as Witch Time, Exactly. Like, it's not even different. They just named it something different. But it's absolutely like that. Okay? Now, you also have different stances that you can unlock during the game. You start with a basic stance, but then you can have other stances as well that make you change the way you're fighting. So, again, this is different from FromSoft, okay? Is there elements that are similar to FromSoft? Sure, but there's a lot that are very different as well. I would actually compare this more to Neo. Remember in Neo, at any time you have your basic attacks, you could change weapons and have a secondary, kind of attack that you could change on the fly between. Also, you have, like, boss abilities you equip for special moves that recharge over time, and you have a transformation. That's pretty much this game. You have, like, all of that. You're going to get boss abilities from special enemies you fight. You're going to be able to transform into certain bosses and stuff, and you're going to have different loadouts. Notably, the game has a meter that fills up as you hit enemies with light attack. When that meter fills up, you now have a powerful stun attack charge. So you can do either just tap heavy attack, and it takes a while to charge, but then you do like a big slam that could do big damage and stun an enemy. If you hit them multiple times with that, they will stagger. Or you could do, if you unlock the ability, you could do a light combo, and anytime in the middle of the combo, you could cancel into the big slam move instead of having to charge it. So that's an easier way to execute it. So what I'm doing in combat now, 5 hours in, you engage an enemy by running up and start hitting them with light attacks. You look for when they're going to attack and dodge around them. Then you continuously hit them with light attacks more. You try to get a combo into a heavy. That's your goal. But also you have other abilities. Like I have the ability to freeze an enemy for a certain amount of time. And by leveling it, that now has leveled up where now you do more damage when you freeze an enemy and attack them and stuff like that. See? So you're going to get all these various different abilities as you play the game. And I could definitely see people playing the game, picking different skill trees, playing it differently from others, and getting different experiences out of it. However, I will say this. The combat is a kind of basic, and it doesn't really have customizable loadout like you would think. Like, oh, well, you have a staff. Well, can you use swords? Well, can you use an axe? I'm 5 hours in, and all you have is the staff. And all the attacks are almost identical to when I started. Like I said, you can get different stances, but for the most part, let me put it this way. You could play it as a masher, and you'll die. But you can play it as a masher. Like, it actually is set up like that to be like a button masher in a lot of ways. What I don't like about the game is that because there's so much combat, I wish there was more to the combat in regards to ways to play. Like, maybe you like dodging. I've played many games where you have to time dodges. But what if you like blocking? What if you like parrying? What if you like overwhelming offense that staggers the enemy? It doesn't really exist in Black Myth Wukong, at least in the first 5 hours. Maybe later you can get those things with skill trees. But right now, it's just run up, beat the shit out of the enemy, dodge, beat the shit out of the enemy, stagger, freeze, do a transformation, beat the shit out of the enemy, dodge, beat the shit out of the enemy, stagger, and it's this big rotating circle of attacks as they all continuously recharge. Again, much like Neo. Like, it really reminds me way more of Neo than it does of a FromSoft game. Thank you to Braden, who has re-upped his membership for 27 months this morning. I appreciate that, Braden. So, yeah, that's my early thoughts are it's fun. And oh, one other thing, because I'll make one other note before we end this segment. The game has a ridiculous amount of bosses. Sometimes it almost feels like a boss rush because you just killed an optional boss and you walk to the next area and here's the story boss. What the? Yeah, the game's like that. Now, the good news is, unlike FromSoft games, when you die, you don't lose your souls. Any experience you gain, you keep permanently. So you can die and not have to worry about, oh, darn, I have to, get my shit back. You don't lose your stuff. So there's really not much of a penalty to dying. And some of these bosses are pretty challenging. A few of them took me several tries to beat. But yeah, there's way more bosses in this game than you would see in like a typical FromSoft game. At least from what I've seen early on in the first 5 hours, there's been tons and tons of bosses. Some are hidden in secret, and some are just mainstream, story bosses that you're required to fight. And it's interesting. I like the boss fights. I don't think I've even fought a single boss yet that I was like, that boss sucks. That's a cheap boss. They were all kind of fair fights. You just had to learn their patterns and be very well timed with your dodging, essentially. And, stick to that formula of your build, and you can pretty much persevere. And I'm having a good time with that. The game also is not open world. It's linear stages, very similar to the older Dark Souls games. However, there is the option to find hidden content in different areas. Like, for example, in the first chapter 1, There's 3 hidden areas with 3 hidden bosses. Each time you kill one of the bosses, you ring a bell. If you ring all 3 bells, you teleport to another alternate stage where you fight a super boss. And if you kill the super boss, you get a big reward for it. Okay? So that's cool. You don't have to do that. You could skip it. But it's not like, oh, Elden Ring, where you're going off in a direction and you're exploring, you know, all these optional areas and stuff like that in an open world. There is no open world. It's all linear maps, very similar to Dark Souls, with a few hidden paths here or there that if you explore, you could find these secret bosses and stuff, okay? So there you go. So overall, I'm having a good time with Black Myth Wukong. I'm playing more today, right after this podcast, 3 more hours. We're now in chapter 2. We actually ended at a really cool part where I saved at a temple, and there's like 3 different ways to go, and I legit don't know which way I should go. I don't know if I should be heading towards this way. I don't know which way is the main story and which way is side quests. So we're just gonna have to try to figure it out. But it's neat in that regard that you can explore and find hidden stuff, and there's stuff to do outside of just the main story. So, all right. So I'm excited for more. Hope that this abridged, mini review, first 5 hours, gives you an idea of what you can expect if you play the game for yourself. Okay.